Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is a beautiful day to talk a little Dynasty Fantasy Football here. We haven't done this in quite some time on the live stream. You know, I'm breaking down these teams every day. I do have a little sneak peek, a little peep show to pull off on the live stream. I don't know if y'all saw my tweet, but we may or may not have something special going towards the people who are a part of the flockfantasy.com crew. Of course, just be on the lookout for your special instructions on how to claim that free t-shirt. But I don't think we have too much to discuss. Make sure you're dropping a like, you're subscribed to the channel. And of course, if you want to get access to my Dynasty rankings, the Dynasty rankings of all your favorite creators, if you want to get one of your Dynasty teams highlighted on our Dynasty trade show, on our Dynasty roster breakdowns, or if you want a personalized podcast of your Dynasty team, make sure you go to the link in the description, the link in the comment section, the link in the live chat. Sign up for flockfantasy.com with promo code FLOCK. You'll get 30% off any subscription. You will also get a podcast breaking down your Dynasty team by yours truly. And you may or may not be seeing a Flock shirt flying in your direction sometime soon. But I think that should be about it. Let's go ahead and let's dive into our first team here. This one coming out from Chip Strong. Thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the Flock and supporting the channel. Super sorry it's taking us this long to get to your team. I know you submitted this on the 29th, but anyway, I am happy to get to it now. This is going to be a 12-team app PPR format where quarterbacks, 6 points per passing touchdown. So we're going to go a little bit more towards those guys that have the passing volume rather than just straight rushing upside. We're going to be having 9 starters, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flexes. Finished second last year. Second year. We finished 7th with 6 going to the playoffs. We want to win it this season. Okay, so hopefully maybe we had like a Breece Hall last year and that's why we didn't come away with it. But Kyler Murray going down probably did not help us last season. Should be a little bit better this next year. Now, if we were going to look at the quarterback position, first off, I mean, obviously with Kyler, someone that has a lot of rushing upside. I mean, someone that has a lot of fantasy football upside in general. But at the same time, it's hard to sit here and say, okay, well, we are 100% confident with what we have. I mean, with Kyler Murray, the team's probably going to be very bad this next season. We really don't know what this team's going to look like with no Cliff Kingsbury. You have no DeAndre Hopkins. Hollywood Brown's yet to show us that he can stay healthy. Rondale Moore's proven to be probably a bust at the NFL level. So Kyler's trending in the wrong direction. He's probably going to miss the first half of the season. But when Kyler's playing, Kyler is going to be very good. But I would like to have a respectable quarterback too here, especially with the injury Kyler's coming off of. Currently sitting with Tannehill, Pickett, Sam Howell. Yeah, not too excited with what we have currently. We're not going to get any quarterbacks falling to the 3rd round. So I hate to say this. Usually we don't really recommend people go through and trade for a quarterback in a 1 QB league. I think maybe it can't hurt you if you have a really cheap price on someone like, I don't know, I was going to say Richardson, but he's probably not the best example just given the fact that we need someone to be starting right away this next season. Like say Trey Lance is the starting quarterback for the 49ers somehow, some way, and we're able to pick him up for a cheap 2nd round price tag. I wouldn't mind that with this team with Kyler's injury. Now, going over to running back, currently sitting with Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Rachaad White, David Montgomery. So we have the elite back with Saquon Barkley. I mean, with Pollard, assuming Dallas doesn't really bring much in, kind of looks like he's shaping up to be a top 10 running back in Dallas this next season. I mean, Rachaad White, David Montgomery, fine depth of the position. We even have a few more names here, such as Leonard Fournette. In reality, those top 4 guys are going to be the main players we're building around. And I think it's a strong running back core. I mean, if we're coming up with any quote-unquote sell-high candidates, I personally am willing to see what kind of value that we could get for Tony Pollard. Like, let me head over to flockfantasy.com real quick, and I'll just show you my rankings with where I personally have them and try to see if there are any other running backs that we can sell them for right now, because obviously Pollard is a player that's moving up rankings quite dramatically. I mean, you understand why. Phenomenal back from a talent perspective, not only from a talent perspective, but I mean, to go along with it, the man does get hit with the franchise tag, so he should be in a pretty damn good offense this next season. Like, if I'm going to go through and sort this by my rankings, I currently have Tony Pollard ranked as the running back 13 on flockfantasy.com. Let me pull this up so y'all can see. What am I doing? Wasting time here. I apologize. Okay, so Mason Dodd. We'll just go to running backs. Go top 25. Okay. Ooh, this is way too big. Okay, let's slim this down just a bit. Okay, so these are going to be my top running back rankings on flockfantasy.com. I mean, right now we have, guys like Ramondre Stevenson, Austin Eckler, Najee Harris directly over him. I mean, I think really the only guy that you could possibly go and trade Pollard for in this range would possibly be Najee Harris. And I'm not going to lie, I do think Najee Harris is a better running back than Tony Pollard. But if we're breaking it down with the job security that you're getting with Najee Harris, given the rookie contract, the volume that you're going to be seeing this upcoming season as well, and the fact that Pollard's playing on the franchise tag, I mean, you don't really know what the situation will be like in 2024. If we could go through and sell Tony Pollard for Najee Harris, I personally would be looking to do that. I understand Pollard's going way before Najee from a redraft perspective, like on Underdog Fantasy. Pollard is going much earlier, but I don't know. I just like the security that you're going to get with Najee Harris instead. And I personally would be looking to make a flip like that. Now, going over to wide receiver, we have A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, DJ Moore in the starting lineup. Down there on the bench, we do have depth. We have Jacoby Myers, and Alan Lazard should be in a decent spot, assuming that Rodgers does go over to the Jets, and you have Robert Woods as well. So don't really need too much at wide receiver. The only thing I'd say is DJ Moore is someone that I am personally looking to move off of. I don't think we need to talk about this too much. I mean, I'm sure you saw my article on flockfantasy.com about the volume issue that DJ Moore may find in Chicago, even with this most likely being the most improved offense in the NFL. They're going to be the most improved offense in the NFL and still probably pretty bad from a passing perspective. So I would love to pivot off of DJ Moore and go get a wide receiver that we feel a little more comfortable with. Like a wide receiver that I didn't even like last year, but I would definitely rather have over DJ Moore right now would actually be someone like Michael Pittman. In my mind, I think making a pivot like that would make sense, both from a short-term and a long-term perspective. But I'm just kind of nitpicking here because in reality, I mean, the team from a roster construction standpoint is very strong. We're more so just trying to come up with maybe we can pivot off this player and go with someone that we like their range of outcomes a little bit more at a cheaper or similar price tag. Freiermuth tight end, I actually really like. I mean, with Pat Freiermuth, phenomenal year 1 and year 2. It's going to be very difficult for you to go through and find a tight end that's had a similar 2-year stretch to start off their NFL career. I mean, going down to the bench, we even have guys like David Njoku. I mean, Daniel Bellinger was exciting, but obviously Darren Waller going over does change things. But having the combo of Freiermuth and David Njoku, you're in a phenomenal spot. Now, going over to our rookie picks, we really don't have much to be playing around with. If you are able to find a difference-making player at the 306, 309, 406, 506, bravo. I probably can't this year, if I'm going to be honest. If I'm looking at this year's rookie class, I would have a very difficult time identifying the player that's going to be able to break out in the 3rd round at the 306, 309. I would just feel much more comfortable with my ability to go through and maybe leverage those picks into a deal where, going back to what we were talking about previously, if we were able to maybe pivot off of like DJ Moore for Michael Pittman, throw in a couple thirds if we need to get the deal done, or same thing if we're trying to pivot off of Tony Pollard for Najee Harris, maybe throw in a couple thirds if we're trying to get the deal done and we just need a little bit of a sweetener there. I would rather use those late round picks this year as that sweetener rather than trying to go out there and be the guy that finds that late round value, because in reality, I think it's going to be much more difficult than people are initially thinking. And that's why it's hard for me to come out here and say, oh, my favorite 3rd round rookie draft value at this point. Obviously, we'll get a much better idea once we actually have the NFL draft. But still, I mean, I think it's very, very hard to project that right now. But I think that should be it in terms of this team's breakdown. I know this was very surface level. Like, there wasn't too much we could say from a roster construction standpoint. This team's young to be competitive for years. This team's going to put up enough points to be competitive in 2023 as well. So there's not much we can say. We're not overweight any given position outside of just possibly going through and checking out the price point of a few key players at each position. But again, thank you so much, my friend, for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. As always, if there's anything that I can do for you, please do not hesitate to reach out to me and let me know, especially with the website. I'd love to get your input, and I would love to get just any advice that you would have on what you would like to see going forward. But let's go over to our next team here. This one coming out from B Huge or Hugh. I apologize. I'm an idiot. Says, hey man, looking to get some advice on the direction I should take this team. 12-team Dynasty Superflex League, start 10 PPR standard scoring. I'd love to commit to making a run this year, but I'm not sure that's feasible with the lack of depth at wide receiver and mediocre quarterbacks. That's where I'm looking for your help. Should I be looking to split some of my higher value assets and look towards 2024 and beyond? Should I draft Bijan and hope to make a run? I like the idea of drafting Bijan, going double hero running back with him and Breece Hall, flipping ETN into more of a wide receiver depth. But of course, I like the idea of packaging the 101 for an elite level quarterback. We're all over the place. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's just dive in here. So we are going to be looking at this as a Google sheet. So I apologize if this is going to blind you. Fair warning, we're going full white here. Okay, so just give me a second to expand this out. So let's shrink this if we can. Yeah, bada boom, bada bang, looking good here. All right, so let's go ahead and let's look at this. Looking at the format of this league, we are going to be starting 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flex spots, and a super flex. So it's going to be a start 10, 12-team Dynasty Superflex League. So a very basic format. In my mind, I think this is the format that most people are going to be joining in future Dynasty leagues. And if we're looking at this team overall, we have some things to get excited about. Like you already referenced, I mean, we have Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson at running back. So we're currently sitting with the running back 1 and running back 2 in Dynasty. We'll get to the running back position in just 1 second, though. Let's first start off at quarterback. And to be honest with you, when you were saying that you didn't think you could be competitive because of your quarterbacks, I mean, it kind of put me in the mindset of thinking, okay, well, are we sitting here with Russell Wilson and Russell Wilson alone? We have nothing at this spot. No, if you have Dak Prescott, Daniel Jones, and Russell Wilson, I actually really like where we sit. I would say Daniel Jones is a very solid quarterback 2 in Dynasty, given the rushing upside you have. I would say that Russell Wilson is a great quarterback 3, given the job security, the contract, and the possibility that Sean Payton's possibly able to turn it around. I don't really know. And then Dak Prescott, QB1, obviously isn't the most exciting thing in the world, but 12 months ago, you thought it would have been. I mean, 12 months ago, a lot of people were viewing Dak Prescott as a mid-quarterback 1 in fantasy. So it's still in the range of outcomes for that to be true. It's not like Dak Prescott is down and out and is never going to be a great fantasy option. I personally wouldn't love him as my quarterback 1, but there's a strong possibility, or not strong possibility, there is a possibility that that does work out and you are happy with what you're sitting with. Now, going over to running back, with the 101, I know you were saying you wanted to go through and trade it for an elite level quarterback. And if you could trade the 101 for Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, of course we're doing it. I doubt you can, though. And 101, I'm probably adding in Bijan Robinson. And we're going to have Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Travis Etienne, Cam Akers. We are going to have 3 top 5 running backs in Dynasty. Yeah, maybe our QB1 here is a little weak, but yeah, I think that we are more than able to overcome it here at the running back position, my friend. Going over to wide receiver as well, we have a top 2 wide receiver in Dynasty. We have Jamar Chase. Drake London, in my mind, is a Dynasty wide receiver 1. I don't exactly know what the production will be like this upcoming season. I think Drake London has proven from a talent perspective that he is phenomenal, but obviously there are massive questions surrounding the overall offense. But Kirk, wide receiver 3, that's solid. Kadarius Toney, I like his wide receiver 4. Mark Andrews at tight end. My expectations when you were asking, do we rebuild? Do we split a couple of these top end assets for wide receiver depth and play for 2024? I thought that this team was not going to look anything like this, my friend. This is a phenomenal roster. This is a great spot to be in. It looks like we maybe earned the 101, and maybe that's why we think that we are not well off. But I mean, if you think about how we earned the 101 this past year, it kind of makes sense. Cam Akers was a year off a torn Achilles, so of course Akers wasn't going to be any help. Travis Etienne was a year off a season-ending injury as well. Breece Hall goes down at the beginning of the season. If we're looking at Jamar Chase misses games this past season. Drake London's in the 2nd worst passing offense in the NFL, the 3rd worst passing offense the past decade. We're looking at Kadarius Toney being injured the majority of the year. Mark Andrews dealing with Tyler Huntley. Yes, Pro Bowl Tyler Huntley as his quarterback. So I understand why this team struggled mightily this past season. But if we look at it through a forward-facing lens, Breece Hall will be healthy this year. I don't know to what extent, but he'll be out there on the field. Travis Etienne will be 2 years removed from a season-ending injury. Cam Akers will be 2 years removed from a season-ending injury. I think we should expect those guys to be much better. Jamar Chase should hopefully be healthy. Drake London should be taking a massive step forward in year 2, as the offense will probably be much better. Mark Andrews, don't know exactly who he'll have at quarterback this next season, but it will most likely be better than Tyler Huntley. So if we check this box by box here and we then add in Bijan Robinson, it's a great spot. I love this team, my friend. I think that if you were to go through and if you were to deviate from just the regular path of going forward, competing, taking the best player available at those rookie picks, I think you would be doing this team a disservice. Now, of course, if we get to say week 4, week 5 this season, and we have a couple serious injuries, say Jamar Chase, high ankle sprain in week 2, say before the season even starts, you have Bijan Robinson torn ACL. Of course, I'm not hoping for that. I'm not praying for that. I hope those guys stay healthy, but just say worst case scenario that happens. This team is young enough to then at that point look to pivot and go towards 2024. But until we have serious injuries derailing our season, there's no reason at all to be thinking that is plan A. Plan A is we are winning this year with an extremely young team, and we are going to be a dominant force in the league for the foreseeable future. So I really like the team, my friend. I know that we've just been hyping it up for 8 minutes and not helping anybody here. If I had to try to go through and say something, I'd say don't get too discouraged with Lamar Jackson leaving Baltimore. I think Mark Andrews is going to be just fine. I would say if we're looking at that 101, take Bijan Robinson unless you can get one of those top 6 quarterbacks as we discussed. And if you really wanted to go through and trade that 101 and go get Joe Burrow, I'd be willing to throw in the 201 as well. That 201, you're not going to be looking at an exciting player in my mind. You're going to be looking at Jalen Hyatt, Josh Downs, someone that, has an outside shot to be relevant. But in reality, I think the hit rate on that 201 pick should probably be less than 50% this upcoming season. So I wouldn't mind to use that as a sweetener and a deal to get something that we like a little bit more. But yeah, I'm sorry for not being able to help too much with this team. It is phenomenal. I think that you are going to be in a phenomenal spot, my friend. And yeah, thank you so much for everything. If there's anything I can ever do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, especially if there's any way that we can improve flockfantasy.com. Let me know. I'd love to get your little fingerprints all over the site and whatever you are looking for. But real quick, we have a donation coming out from David. Thank you so much. My man says, got offered Kenneth Walker for my 105, 106, and 107 in a full PPR quarterback, 1 QB league. Yes or no? Okay, so first off, thank you so much for supporting the channel, my friend. Second off, I'd say if this was super flex, I would be laughing at the question, right? If it was super flex and we're looking at the 105, 106, 107, you're going, okay, do I want Jackson Smith-Njigba, Jahmyr Gibbs, Will Levis, or Kenneth Walker? We're clearly taking the picks. But yeah, one quarterback, I mean, this just goes to show how different that format's going to be in terms of how we are valuing our rookie picks. In a one quarterback format, that 105 is most likely Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison. That 106 is most likely Zach Charbonnet. And the 107, we're probably looking at someone like Zay Flowers. And you also have to keep in mind, usually in a one quarterback format, you're going to be in a league where you do not have the same starting lineup requirements. Usually it's going to be a shallower league in general. Now, with all that being said, however, I still am going to go ahead. I still am going to take the rookie pick package. I would sell Kenneth Walker for 3 mid first round picks. I think it is significantly closer in that one quarterback format. But regardless, I think we do have to take that deal. But thank you so much, my friend, for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. And let's go ahead and let's dive into our next team here. Okay, let me pull this back up. I apologize. Now, this one is going to be coming out from Casual Mammal. I love the Discord name, my friend. says, hello, in a 12-team Superflex 6-point per passing touchdown league, tight end premium is going to be 0.5 point per reception. Start 10, 1 QB, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 3 flex, 1 super flex. So generally, we're going to be looking to build around the wide receiver here. Just drafted this team last week. Outside of running backs and no future draft picks for the next year, where do we think we can improve things? And okay, actually, no, sorry. Might be. That's a personalized DM review. That's on me. We're not going to do that on this live stream. Let's skip down to Gordon here. Thank you, Gordon. 10-team Superflex start 9, half PPR, half point tight end premium. This is our first Dynasty team, and I completely blew the startup 2 years ago. Almost immediately started rebuilding. Recently traded Goff in the 106 for Lamar Jackson. Traded DJ Moore for the 109. Traded Geno in the 201 for Daniel Jones. Great Daniel Jones move. I'm surprised you're able to get that. Feel like we've made some good trades, but still a year or two away from competing. I would say if you feel like you're a year or two away from competing in general, I don't love the idea of going through and trading for some players that are, yes, going to be elite with their production this upcoming season, but maybe you question the long-term value proposition, someone like Lamar Jackson. But of course, if you're able to get Lamar Jackson at that value, you kind of just have to go ahead and do it. But let's go ahead and let's dive into this. At quarterback, we are going to be sitting with Lamar Jackson, Daniel Jones, Matthew Stafford. I mean, at quarterback, I love where we sit. Obviously, this is a clear result of what we ended up doing with those trades. But all of these guys in my mind, and I know this sounds so crappy to say, I think you are looking at these assets being more so for contending rosters than just a long-term play. And yes, I understand Lamar Jackson is very young. Yes, I understand Lamar Jackson is an elite fantasy option. And in redraft on Underdog, I'm taking the man everywhere. And I promise you I'm doing that. Now, at the same time, I would say that I personally have my own concerns, very similar to how NFL teams aren't willing to go out there and give him all the guaranteed money in the world, in saying, how does this playing style transfer 3-4 years down the road? What does Lamar Jackson look like at 30 years old? I'm pretty damn confident I know what Joe Burrow, what Justin Herbert will look like at 30 years old. I can't say with the same confidence that statement about Lamar Jackson. So specifically, when you tell me you feel like you're 2 years away from being competitive, that's where I get a little bit nervous in building our team around these guys. But regardless, I mean, the value you got them at, you had to go out there and get them. Now, running back, we're currently sitting with Breece Hall, Jerick McKinnon, Rashad Penny, Damian Harris, Kenneth Gainwell. So, I mean, at RB, we're in a fine spot. Clearly, we don't have a running back, too, that we're that excited about. But still, at the end of the day, I mean, you have Breece Hall, you have a top 3 running back in Dynasty, you have that 3-down workhorse that we are able to build around for the long term, so it's hard to complain too much about that. And we hopefully can find someone to go through and start on a week-to-week basis between Madison, Gainwell, Harris, Penny. Out of those 4 guys, we should be able to play the hot hand and kind of get by if we wanted to be a competitive team this next year. Now, the position where I agree we're probably not good enough to be competitive just yet is going to be wide receiver. We're sitting with Ayuk, London, Tony, and really that's about it. Now, I love London for the long term, but I'm trying to be realistic with myself in saying that this situation will be very bad for Drake London, right? Like, even if the Atlanta Falcons are significantly improved, still, I'm not necessarily assuming that the Atlanta Falcons will be a good passing offense this next season. I think it's going to take some time to work up there. And in reality, London is going to be that long-term play, which you can afford to hold him for the long term. The man's 21 years old, about to be 22 years old. So, I mean, I'm fine with that with Drake London, but we just have to be aware of what the timeline actually looks like. With Ayuk, I mean, I like him as a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, but if we're kind of relying on him as the borderline 1-2 on our roster, I don't think we're really going to get there. We have Dallas Goedert at tight end, a phenomenal tight end. Love Goddard, and Ferguson, tight end 2, is going to be completely fine. So in general, as the team sits today, I don't think that we are ready to compete this next season, but there is a massive asterisk on this. And the reason I want to highlight this is, if we go through and highlight how the team looks now, and then add in Bijan Robinson and the 109 and see how everything else slides down, you can see how impactful a team adding in Bijan Robinson will be. Now, keep in mind, I know that a lot of people are saying, okay, well, if you're not ready to compete right now, if you have a dynasty team in a 10-team league that looks like this, you should possibly be looking to trade away Bijan Robinson. No, I don't think so, because if we go through and add in Bijan Robinson and that 109 and then reevaluate this team overall. Okay, so at that running back 2 spot, we're sitting with Bijan Robinson. We have the running back 1 and running back 2 overall in Dynasty. Then if we go and look at what we're going to have with the 109, you're going to be looking at someone as Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison. So say we add in Quentin Johnston here, and then we're able to platoon Brandon Ayuk, Drake London, and Quentin Johnston. And if we hit, I mean, obviously we're hitting on Bijan Robinson. Right now, he's a round 1 starter pick in underdog drafts. He's going as a top 3 running back for just 2023. You know you're hitting on him. But if we hit on that rookie wide receiver as well with a Quentin Johnston, and he can give us a top 24 season, this team is immediately changed overnight to a contending roster. Whereas if you thought that, okay, I'm not ready to contend, so I need to be going and selling Bijan Robinson, and I need to be playing for 2024, 2025, if you were going down that road, you would have to reconstruct your team overall. You'd have to be looking to sell some veteran assets, such as a Dallas Goedert, maybe flipping Lamar Jackson for a little bit more than what you paid. But in reality, I think that this team will have enough firepower to get it done with those names being added in. Personally, if we're looking at what we're going to do at the 109, I think that we are looking at, I mean, like we already said, Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison, maybe Zach Charbonnet if he falls in the perfect spot. But yeah, I really like what we have here. Now, if we were going to go and make a move in the second round, the 207 is really the 205. Keep in mind, it's a 10-team league. The 301, 401, 501. Going back to what we are always talking about here, I mean, the rookies this season in this range, I just really am not that excited about. I would rather try to parlay these picks into going through and getting upgrades elsewhere. Like if we can trade that 207 and then also look to move a depth running back, like if we can go through and sell the 207 and Damian Harris and get a wide receiver that we think can actually make a difference on our roster, go get someone like Elijah Moore, I think that that would be a move that makes a lot of sense here. And that's essentially what I'm going to be doing with a lot of those late second round, those third round picks this season. But again, thank you so much, my friend, for being a member of the flock. And as always, if there's anything that I can do for you, especially any way I can improve flockfantasy.com, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'd love to get it done. Okay. Now let's go over to our next team. This one coming out from Ruby Roops. Thank you. Says, Buenos dias, Mason. I can read. Second year of Superflex in a 10-team PPR. Start 10, 4-point passing touchdown. I tanked last year to accumulate a ton of 2023, 2024 picks. Okay, so this should be an exciting roster. Have already moved several 2023 picks to acquire Trevor Lawrence, Jonathan Taylor, Jalen Waddle. This was somebody's most drafted player last year. I can't recall who that was. Whoever it was, probably extremely smart. I mean, probably should be listening to that individual. But anyway, and Devonta Smith this past season. Oh my gosh. I feel like I can make a push this year with plenty of draft capital. With plenty of draft capital still in tow. Would love to get your take. Pick 104 is inclined to reach and take Gibbs. At the 105, who are we choosing between Richardson, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, assuming they're there and I don't make any additional moves pre-draft? Thank you so much. So thank you so much for being a member of the flock, my friend. And real quick, as we pull this up, I do want to talk about the difference between the 105, or just say that decision in a 10-team league versus a 12-team league. Because in general, if you are playing in that 10-team format, you have to just think about the supply and demand of the quarterback position and how it's going to be a little bit skewed here in comparison to what you're going to see in that 12-team league. In that 12-team league, I would say, you know what, man? I mean, you really can't think about it too much. You need to go through and you need to take Anthony Richardson. Even if you don't really need Richardson yourself, you are going to be able to find someone else in your league that needs a starting quarterback, and you're going to be able to get a ton of value for him. In that 10-team league, most people are going to have their starting quarterback. you're going to be in a pretty good spot in the majority of cases in that 10-team format, where it's not as easy as just going through and flipping that player for a profit, because the suitors for that QB in general are going to be significantly less. But anyway, let's go position by position here. And yeah, just like what we thought, when someone says that they've tanked the past 2 seasons or so, you just immediately know that they are going to be loaded here. And that's what we have at quarterback. We have Trevor Lawrence, Tua. Down there on the bench, we have Baker Mayfield. So quarterback, we're fine. I would say if we get the opportunity to take Anthony Richardson, I would like that. Now, of course, it is going to be interesting in that Richardson doesn't project to be a starter for us immediately. Now, of course, what I like about Richardson, given the fact that we have that top end talent here, is we are going after a quarterback that has the upside, right? Maybe from a security and a floor perspective, you are more confident with CJ Stroud, more confident with Bryce Young. But for this team in particular, I honestly think that doesn't matter nearly as much as just going out there and getting the highest ceiling possible. And given the rushing upside from a fantasy perspective, I think Richardson would be a natural fit here as QB3 if we get him at the 105. Now, going over to running back, we're currently sitting with JT, Javonte Williams in the starting lineup. And then going down to the bench, we do have some depth. We have Cam Akers here. So, I mean, overall, we could obviously add in another RB. We have the 102, 105. Oh, crap. Now that we have the 102, it's going to be a little more difficult to figure out what we're doing at pick 5, knowing that we're going to be taking either CJ Stroud or Bryce Young there. But regardless, we'll get to that in just one second. Yeah, so we do need to go through and possibly look to add in another running back. It really depends what your current thought process is on Javonte Williams. I mean, with Javonte, he's a running back that has a very high ceiling, of course. I mean, he's flashed some elite traits. This could be a much better offense. We've seen Sean Payton go out there and produce a ton of running back ones from a fantasy football perspective, but still at the same time, it's a devastating injury. He's never done it over a large sample. So the range of outcomes on Javonte Williams is extremely wide. It's difficult to know exactly what you have. I mean, I understand why people would be very bullish and why people would be willing to make that bet on Javonte. I think a lot of this roster hinges on what you're going to get from him, because going over to wide receiver, obviously we're in a phenomenal spot. Waddle, Amon-Ra St. Brown, both hovering around a wide receiver 5 in Dynasty. Devonta Smith, Drake London, both hovering around top 12 options in Dynasty. Calvin Ridley, a phenomenal option this next season. Obviously, the long-term value is a little bit different. We have Kadarius Toney down there at depth. So we are elite at wide receiver. We have the #1 overall tight end in Dynasty with Kyle Pitts. We even have some acceptable depth just in case Kyle Pitts pulls what Kyle Pitts did last year. We can go through and we can start Greg Dulcich instead. So overall, this is a phenomenal team that doesn't really have any holes. I'd say the weakest part of the roster is most likely going to be that running back 2 with Javonte Williams. Now, going down and looking at what we can do in the rookie draft. Obviously, if we were wanting to draft for team need, we would go ahead and we would take Jahmyr Gibbs at pick 2. But instead, I would never do that. Instead, I would rather just go through and take the best player available. In my mind, best player available is going to be CJ Stroud. It is going to be Bryce Young. And I'm really not going to think about that at all. But the thing is, once we add in, say, CJ Stroud 102, then we're sitting with the QB room of Trevor Lawrence, Tua, CJ Stroud. We already talked about a 10-team Superflex league, the supply and demand being a little bit different there. Do we really want to be taking Anthony Richardson? I probably still stand by yes. Just because I think if we go Richardson at 5, this team is still probably going to be the strongest team in the league in terms of the output that we are getting this next season just for 2023. And at the same time, I would say if we are still going to be the strongest team in the league, regardless of our selection at that pick, we should probably just be going through and taking best player available and whoever we think can give us the most trade value next offseason. And in my mind, I think Anthony Richardson, out of those players, will give you the most trade value next offseason. Now, if we were to go through and look at the rest of this team, what makes this team nasty and what makes me even that much more confident in saying just to go ahead and take Anthony Richardson is, say, worst case scenario, right? Worst case scenario. Javonte Williams doesn't make it back. The knee injury was devastating. He doesn't make it back until week 8 this next year. And we're going worst case scenario here, right? So also in this scenario, Jonathan Taylor, high ankle sprain before the season starts. And we're rolling into the year with Cam Akers and nobody else. We're currently sitting with 1, 2, 3, 4 2024 first round picks. So in that worst case scenario, we still have enough firepower to be able to make moves and shore up the weakest part of our roster. In my mind, that makes it where we have no excuse not to go best player available. And I'm still probably going to be planning on Anthony Richardson at 5, assuming he falls. Of course, we don't know if that's a guarantee, but you're saying that you're pretty sure you're going to get him there. But again, thank you so much, my friend, for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. I mean, I think it's kind of funny looking back saying I feel like I can make a push this year. Of course you can make the push this year. You are the best team in the league by far. I can't even imagine someone else competing with that on paper. Of course, the actual season is a little of a different story. We have a bunch of random variants there. But regardless, my friend, thank you so much for being a member of the flock. And as always, if there's anything that I can do for you, please don't hesitate to let me know. But I'm having a lot of fun doing this. Let's go ahead and let's dive into our next team here. This one coming out from Simple. Thank you so much, my man, for being in the flock. Says 12-team, 1 quarterback, half PPR. That 2024 first will most likely be the 101. His team is significantly worse than everyone else's. Let me know what we should look to do. I'd obviously like to contend this year, but at the same time, I want to get younger. Predicament that faces every Dynasty owner. Podcast or YouTube is fine. Thanks for always staying consistent with your uploads and keep up the great content. No, thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the vlog. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's pull this up on that other window. And as I do this, I will kindly ask for everybody to drop a like in the live stream if you have not done so already. And number one thing that I want to be pointing out with this team is the shallowness of the starting lineup. If we are looking at this, you are currently sitting with 1 QB spot, 1 running back spot, 1 wide receiver, 1 tight end, and 3 flexes. So we're at 7 total offensive players, not including the defense. Defense doesn't matter. So if we're at 7 total offensive players, this means, in my mind, depth doesn't matter. I'm sure you've heard me say it more than, probably too much at this point. But not only will depth not matter in a shallow format like this, inherently, because wide receiver depth and running back depth won't be as important, I will be willing to place a greater emphasis on coming away with a quarterback and a tight end that have incredibly high ceilings. And that's what we have here starting off at the quarterback position. We have Lamar Jackson. Like we've discussed a ton with Lamar here. I think that he's a quarterback that has all the upside in the world. I don't necessarily know what the long-term outlook is, but short-term, he's going to be elite. I'm drafting him in as many underdog drafts as I possibly can. We know all the rushing upsides there. And I would rather roster Lamar Jackson in a 1 quarterback format than a super flex league, of course, considering cost. Just given the fact that, well, yeah, maybe the long-term with Lamar is not necessarily certain. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like at 30 years old. It won't matter at that point. It's so easy to replace a quarterback that we'll be able to easily do it in that 1 quarterback format. And I'd rather just focus in on getting the highest ceiling possible, which Lamar Jackson does have for the time being. Down there is the depth. We have Tannehill. We have Stafford. It's a 1 QB format. It doesn't freaking matter. Going to the rookie picks, we have the 210. Maybe Will Levis falls there. He won't, but if somehow he did, we would take him, but it doesn't really matter. Going over to running back, Currently sitting with JT, with Jonathan Taylor, both the top 5 dynasty running back as well as a top 5 redraft running back. We have Derrick Henry in there in one of the flex spots. Going down to the bench, we have really nobody. And the reason that this is fine, and you can easily just go through and go with 2 top heavy running backs in this kind of format, is you're only having to start one guy. If you only have to start one guy, yeah, who cares about a running back 3, especially if you're only starting 7 players in total. And what we did see when we skimmed down to those future first round picks down there is we do have a 2024 first, but it's not our own. We have someone else's. Looks like we swapped with them. So if we don't have our own 2024 first, and instead we have someone else's, we are highly incentivized. We are already leveraged. We need to be going all in for production this season. It doesn't do us well to earn the 101. If we earn the 101, if we earn the 102, it's someone else's team. You're saying that the first round pick that we have from someone else is most likely the 101, which of course is very nice to hear. But knowing that we don't have our own first, that makes me more excited about just going through and getting players like Derrick Henry, just going in to win this season. Going over to wide receiver, we're currently sitting with the all-star class from 2019. We have A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, 2019 Ole Miss wide receivers. We have Deebo Samuel, 2019 South Carolina wide receivers. So the all-star 2019 SEC wide receivers to be exact. Going down to the bench, we have Mike Williams. I actually like having Mike Williams here. I think that if you're going to be looking at the impact that he can make in a format like this, he's probably the perfect guy to have, just given the upside. I don't think there's too much to discuss, but one thing that I did notice that I definitely want to fix is the roster allocation that we have with this bench. We have Hawkinson at the very top. Phenomenal. I think Hawkinson's a top 3 dynasty tight end. I think Hawkinson has an argument to be made to be a top 3 redraft tight end as well. So if that's the case and we're scrolling down here to the bench and we're seeing that we're rostering Taysom Hill, Noah Fant, Irv Smith Jr., none of whom will we ever be excited to go through and put into a flex spot, I think that this is an issue considering how shallow this bench is. Because if we're looking at this bench, right, and we are just breaking down the roster allocation that we have, on the bench, we are rostering 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 3 tight ends. And then also 2 DSTs. In my mind, I really don't like this, my friend. I think that we kind of have to change this up. I don't exactly know which tight end you're wanting to cut. Most likely it'd be Irv Smith Jr., even though no, we can't do it. I really like the landing spot in Cincinnati. I think we have to move off of one of these tight ends, even if we are only getting the most marginal of upgrades, right? Like if we're going down here, say we have the 210 and we trade the 210 and just say Taysom Hill, and in return, we get the 205, right? And in reality, the 205, 210, you're most likely kind of looking at the same player. I think we still need to be making a deal like that just because I want to be getting rid of one of these tight ends and then having that open roster spot to go and take a shot on a depth running back, to go and take a shot on a depth wide receiver. In my mind, I think that would make significantly more sense than what we're currently doing. I don't want to say that rostering 3 DSTs is bad with this shallow bench. Personally, I wouldn't do it, but if we're going to be looking at rostering DSTs, kickers, it always is very dependent on what the rest of your league mates are doing. So if the rest of your league mates are picking up any defense and holding on to them forever the second that they hit the waiver wire, then yeah, you probably should just go through and roster a few. But overall, I think that this is a very strong team. The main highlights are we just want to make sure that we are making moves to contend this season and not focusing in too much on our long-term outlook. And I do think that we need to be fixing the roster allocation of our bench spots where we can skew a little bit more heavy on running back and wide receiver. Because while, yeah, we only have to start one of each, generally, based off the math that we have done, I don't know if you've read our Dynasty research book. You want to be heavily going in on both running back and receiver for those flex spots and steering clear of tight ends. But again, thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. Really hope that you got something from this podcast or breakdown. Really hope that it helped you out in some way. And as always, if there's anything that I can do for you, please do not hesitate to let me know. I mean, especially if it's something to do with flockfantasy.com. If there's anything we can improve with flockfantasy.com, which we have some big time improvements on the way, let me know and I'll be happy to get it done for you, my friend. But let's go over to our next team. This one's exciting here, okay? Because this one's going to be an MFL team. If y'all don't know, I mean, if you were playing Dynasty back in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, say probably 2019's about where it started to change. MFL was really the only option. Like, it was the only solid option. You had to play on MFL. I know a lot of people don't like it, and if you've never done it before, pulling up an MFL roster like this is the grossest thing ever. Personally, I grew up playing on this for years and years and years. I don't play anymore on MFL, but it's just like a blast from the past. Like it's like a nostalgia thing. I really like seeing it. But again, thank you, my friend, for coming out. And real quick, I do want to give a shout out. PJ with the donation says, just want to say I appreciate your positivity. Thank you, my man. Okay, so this one coming out from Gum. I already butchered it. I don't even want to try to embarrass myself. New 1 quarterback, 12-team Superflex. I'm sorry, new 1 QB, 12-team startup Dynasty League. PPR and 1.5 points per reception for tight end. League wanted to do 2 separate drafts with no rookies. Starters are 1 QB, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, tight end, 2 flex. So if we're going to be looking at the total amount of starters, we are starting 9 guys in a 1 quarterback format. Seems standard. Roster of 17, then we'll be adding a 4 taxi after the draft. So it will be a shallow roster in general where picks are hard to come by. I'm sorry, spots are hard to come by. Our picks are the 101, 201, 301, 401. Okay, so held to the yes. We're going to be able to add in Bijan Robinson here. Let's go ahead and let's pull up this team. So if we're looking at this, you will have at quarterback Kirk Cousins, Jordan Love, and Kyler Murray. In my mind, I actually really like this because if we're going through and thinking about the breakdown of this quarterback room, you are getting the upside of a Kyler Murray here where you have the rushing upside, but obviously with the injury, with the question marks surrounding the overall offense, the floor is low as well. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, we kind of have the exact opposite with Kirk Cousins, where Cousins, I would say, it's probably safe to say at this point, extremely limited ceiling, right? Like we really don't expect Kirk Cousins to ever go out there and be a top 3 QB from a fantasy football perspective. But Jordan Love is that 3rd QB, completely fine here. Now going over to running back, this is where you can see the strength of the team definitely is. We have the 101, so we're rolling with Bijan Robinson. We have Bijan, Kenneth Walker, Travis Etienne, and then a couple depth names. We're sitting with 3 of the top 5 dynasty running backs. I'm so sorry, my friend. I'm at a loss for words. I think this is like our 10th breakdown that we've done today. Obviously, we've done a lot of personalized podcasts. Should not have any excuses. I'm just not as sharp as I was at the beginning of the day, my friend. But anyway, 3 of the top 5 running backs in Dynasty. There's not much to say about this. You're in a phenomenal spot top to bottom. I mean, even worst case scenario, if we're having to say, okay, well, we need some depth. We have Antonio Gibson as depth. I mean, we have Deonta Foreman as depth. Phenomenal spot to be in. Going over to wide receiver, we have a bunch of great year 2 options. We have Garrett Wilson, a borderline top 5 wide receiver in Dynasty. We have Drake London, a borderline top 12 guy. We have Christian Watson as our wide receiver 3 here. Deontay Johnson as our wide receiver 4. There's no way this is a 12-team league, right? Nope, it is a 12-team league, and somehow we have our 2024 first. I already know that this is going to be the worst podcast we've done of the night because I'm literally going to have nothing to say. I love it. I'm trying to think of something else that I can contribute with. It looks like there's nothing. Hawkinson, we have a top 3 tight end in Dynasty, arguably, and think some people would have him as tight end 1. I personally don't, but I could hear the argument. Okay, so what can I say about this team here? We have a great 1-2 combo at quarterback. You have both the security as well as the upside. We have 3 running backs inside the top 5. Keep in mind, Bijan Robinson not pictured, but we have him. We have top end production at wide receiver for 2023, as well as these guys being in year 2 for the long term. We have an elite level tight end. There are no players on this roster that I don't agree with their dynasty value and perceive them to be overvalued assets, just to say maybe we can pivot off of one of these names. Like, what name can we pivot off of here? Here's a stretch, okay? If I'm trying to come up with something. If we break down the tiers right now in dynasty rookie drafts in a 1 quarterback format, if there is anything that we can do to get from that 201 pick to the 106, I would love to do so. Because in reality, the 201 with a roster that is this loaded, pretty much at every position, in my mind's not doing anything for us, right? Like, what the hell are we getting at the 201? That's going to make a difference. So if we could go through and somehow, some way move inside, say, the top 5, top 6, like if we could go the 201 and Deontay Johnson and get back the 105 and then have a shot at Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison, Zach Charbonnet, that would be something that I'd really like in this 1 quarterback format. I would be willing to throw in the 301 to get that deal done. I mean, especially considering the fact that this is a shallow roster with only 17 total spots. I understand that we are adding in the taxi squad, but still, even after that taxi squad's added in, you are going to have a difficult time throughout the course of the season being able to make waiver wire moves. And in a lot of dynasty leagues, waiver wire moves don't really matter, but that's because you roster 30 guys. You roster 35 guys. So yeah, in that format, I'm never thinking about the waiver wire, but here it actually is going to be important. So yeah, I would really just try to focus in on making a 2-for-1 deal where we could possibly upgrade off of Deontay Johnson and move from that 201 to get a prospect that we're more excited about making a real difference with this team and open up a roster spot at the same time. But that's me stretching to say something, my friend. This is a phenomenal team, which I'm sure you know. But again, thank you so much for being a member of the flock. And if there's anything that I can do for you, please don't hesitate to let me know, my friend. But I think that should be about it for this live stream. You could tell with that last breakdown that I am mentally shutting down here. But thank you again, everybody, for coming out, hanging out with me tonight. And I do want to give a shout out to everybody who's on a part of the flock on flockfantasy.com. And we may or may not have something special coming to you for free sometime soon. So be on the lookout for that. I'll, of course, be posting more information and more announcements on flockfantasy.com and in the Discord. But definitely make sure you're in the Discord if you're on flockfantasy.com. Now, thank you. I really appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day and really hope we get to see you with the video tomorrow.